of good, innovative ideas. So he'll be talking to you about a very interesting subject of reflecting on your path, and it's from that innovative planning number 1035. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Roy Coughlin on how to start a podcast. How to start a podcast, Mr. Roy Coughlin. And one thing, Roy, before you begin, this whole session is going to be 20 minutes, I take it. And in this session, please write down your questions because, as I said at the beginning, we want to keep this interactive. Thank you, Roy. Take it away.
Yeah, no problem. And what I want to do is I want to keep it in a gregarious situation where you're not taking too many notes for what I'm actually showing you. If you're interested in doing a podcast, because I've done it on Prezi and I'll share it with you so you'll have access to the presentation after the meeting. So I'll actually go into it now. I've done 3 podcasts for those that don't know. I've had the 3 of them on number 1 in different charts, and I'm going to go through the whole process and let you know how easy it is to do it. So I shall share my screen. And you can just perhaps tell me when you can actually see the screen. Yes, okay. Doesn't seem to be working when I'm actually sharing the screen. So, one sec, I'll minimize the actual. Okay, yeah, I can see this thing. So basically, for those that don't know what a podcast is, I'm assuming most of you do, but you can listen, it's like an audio that you're listening, and most people listening on their phones or in the car. There's different types of podcast. So I've actually do interview. So my speaking podcast is an interview podcast. The co-host is the Learn Polish podcast, where I'm actually, I'm the student and the teacher is the other host. And then I have another one called Meditation Podcast, and I'm actually not doing nothing. I'm just getting the meditation for people, and I'll explain in a minute why I've actually done that. This is What's Your Why. If this is one of the guys that actually he was in the leadership club, and he got inspired to start one, and he's in a school, and they're basically interviewing people all around the world, explaining their stories. Like in Venezuela and everything, the things that we don't see in the press, and it's doing very well. So why is it increasing? There's 7 people on average that are listening to podcasts. You can talk about anything, obviously. You know, some people, I subscribe to one, and he's into kind of arts, and he'll talk about something that he's seen in a museum or something. So there's various types of podcasting. And you can connect with people as well to build your audience. So sometimes people are wondering, how can they start a podcast? What could I talk about? So my suggestion is to do it like this. The things that interest you, put them on this side, make a list of it, and what you're good at here, and then try to cross-reference them, and you can come up with a topic based on that. You know, so you can do that in your own time. This is just showing where I was in the charts. I haven't added the other ones. It was for the speaking podcast one. But in Spain, I got to, there was number 2. Number 5 in another country. Number 4. And number 1. Every single, the 3 podcasts, only a few weeks ago, I had both, because they were in different categories. I had the meditation and the Learn Polish in Sweden, in Germany, and in some other country as well, all at number 1. So there are different places that you can actually listen to the podcast. So majority of people either have an Android device or an iPhone. So the iPhone actually comes with a podcast symbols. You can just go in and listen to your podcast. You can subscribe. And for Android devices, you can either use Spotify or Stitcher. Spotify have spent a lot of money recently. They've spent 350 million buying a few different platforms. So one of them is one that I use. Where do people listen to the podcast? While driving, traveling, running. I do it when I'm cooking and also when I'm ironing. So, perhaps you have different ways, but so, they say that men can't double task. I can prove them wrong. So I can listen to a podcast as I'm cooking or ironing. They're the different categories. Apple recently changed these around, but what you do is you kind of go in and if you're setting it up, you try to get this correct. So if you're going to do education like I did, I put the Learn Polish under education. I also done the speaking podcast under education, and religion and spirituality was for the meditation podcast. So when people are checking out these categories, they'll actually find you. These are the most important genres. So business, comedy, politics, health. So there's different places to host, and the best way of describing it is like a minefield. There's so many of them there. The way I could describe it is it's like picking a car. Everything has got different features. So the ones that I actually use, for the first one I was using was Anchor, and I've done it for Learn Polish, for the speaking podcast and the meditation, and I've done the Learn Polish on the Podbean. And I recently, Radek has actually started a podcast as well, and he interviewed me the other day, and he was able to use Anchor, so he realizes that it's actually, it's easy to do. We can let you know about that later. So there are different places that you can listen to. What's happening now with Anchor is they automatically upload to these things. Before, you had to copy your RSS feed, which is the link that you get that your specific podcast, and you'd go into the different platforms and you'd actually register to upload it. Now they're doing that for you, so they're simplifying it, and they're just a few of the different ones that you can do. So what I was doing at one stage, I was just copying all these and posting them on Facebook so that people could listen to the one they want. But now I just quote my website, which is speakingpodcast.com. It diverts to my Anchor page, and then they can see all of these inside it in nice little logo buttons instead of as a HTML. These are other ones that are out there, and there's probably another 100 on top of that. Ones that I've heard that people have told me are good is Libsyn, Pippa, and we use some websites with WordPress, so I haven't used that, but as you can see, the Anchor. But the best way is do some research yourself and see what you want. And I'll give you some of the things, because I've done a comparison. I spent a lot of time checking these out. And another thing that I did as well is, before I did the podcast, I read 7 books. And getting back to the why, because I didn't mention it, I was in Tallinn in Estonia, and a guy was actually done a workshop on podcasting. And my main thing for joining Toastmasters was to be able to speak in public and get my message out. And I thought this is a great way of getting my message out, because with the book that I'm about to release, I'm exposing a lot of stuff, and I couldn't really create a podcast with that because it would be shut down. I wouldn't get as much promotion and everything. But I'm building me with the 3 different podcasts, so hence why I've got the meditation one as well. So this is one where I had reviewed, and Podbean I saw on that, and it kind of gave me a reason to go with that. This is Buzzsprout, the reason I didn't go with that, and things you have to be careful for. So they're saying they're free. This one is free. But what you have to watch out for, it's hosted for 90 days. So that means that your podcast will delete after 90 days. So all your downloads and everything will disappear, and you don't want to lose that. You want to keep all your downloads, your listeners. And the other thing is 2 hours. That would work for my Polish one if it wasn't deleted, because they're only kind of 5 minutes. But say the speaking one, I'm interviewing people and they last for over an hour. So you have to bear in mind with that as well. And you've got different prices. This is another example. This is Simplecast, what they're charging. So you can see the different prices. So what I've done for my one, I have speakingpodcast.com, I have learnpolishpodcast.com, and I have meditationpodcast.org. And I also have podcastmeditation.com, but the one that I promote most is meditationpodcast.org. When you're getting the logo, you can go on to fiverr.com or 99 Designs, or perhaps you know a graphic designer. You know, you don't need to spend that much money. You can spend like $10 with fiverr.com. Just have it simple and clear so that people know exactly what you're doing with your logo. So that was just the Polish one. The reason I kept it red and white is because that's the Polish flag. And to be honest, the picture isn't that professional. I plan on taking a professional picture soon and just changing that. But this was the main thing, was the, you know, so if you saw that in the little icon, because you have to remember, if you have the graphic, it's big, but look at it as if it's going to be on your phone. Look at the other podcast logos, they're tiny. So you have to make sure that you know what it is. You see sometimes people having a lot of writing on it. Nobody's going to read that. They're not going to see it. So make it that they know exactly what the podcast is about on a simple glance. The Podbean. So I've done this one with the Polish one. So the Anchor one is free. The Podbean one was about €100 for the year. And you get a website with it. So you can see there the episodes are on it. It tells you how many downloads and how many subscribers you've got. And just based on feedback I got from listeners, at the start I was just uploading these tracks. And later a person asked, could you actually have the translations for me as well? So I've been doing that. But what I'm doing as well is I'm promoting myself. So I don't have sponsors at the moment. So what I do is I say for Polonus, if you want lessons, so the teacher's my ex-wife, you can go to her school or do a Skype lesson. So that's what she gets out of it. And then I cross-promote my other podcasts with Speaking Podcast and Meditation. And I also say, if you want to learn more about me, go to roycolin.com. On two of my podcasts I introduced music after a while because a few people mentioned it. So on this, I've been a bit creative. A 16-year-old, he's actually a member of one of the Toastmasters. He went in under his dad, because if you're wondering how did a 16-year-old get in, and he's a beatboxer. So I had beatboxing for 15 seconds at the start of my Polish podcast. And there's another member done a guitar for the Speaking Podcast. And it just, what I've been told, just talking to other people, is they get used to the sound of it and it kind of makes a trigger. And so it seems to be better to have a bit of music on the introduction. So this is what you get with Anchor. So I have no website or anything. They have that set up. So I created the name, so I've used my own name. And this is what you see. So when you have an episode, like that was one of the episodes, I have about 38, I think, at the moment on that. And people go in. So when they go in, then they can, available on 10 platforms, listen on that, and they can click on that and they get something like this. So if they're a Spotify listener, they'll hit it and it'll bring them directly to the link on my podcast, same with Stitcher or the Apple one. These are in the iTunes. So what you want to do as well is ask people to give you ratings and give you nice comments. So you're going to do that with your friends first, but also ask when you're doing your podcast. You know, tell people, look, if you enjoyed the podcast, because they're free, I'd appreciate a rating and a nice comment. So I have more now, but I have a 5-star rating on that with over 200 positive comments. You get the statistics in Anchor as well. It shows you where the countries, and even if you click on Poland, it'll bring you to the exact region, and even further again, it shows you where the platforms are actually, which devices that they're listening on, and a map showing. This is on the Podbean one, showing you where they were actually located. As you can see, Poland and Ireland and England. And just to let you know, what I did at one stage is I wanted to get into the UK. So I contacted all my friends. I said, can you download this? Can you give me a 5-star rating? And that's how I was able to get into the charts there, because you can't just assume people will listen. It's like opening a shop. You open the door and you think they're going to just come in. They're not. You have to actually start shouting. So I do a lot of promoting on that. Gives you statistics as well, numbers and stuff like that. So some of them over 500 listeners. I've got on the meditation one, there's nearly 2,000 listeners. The equipment. So you don't need a fortune to get started. You could get going with something like this. You can even use your iPhone. At one stage, I was recording the Polish podcast and I forgot I had packed all my gear, my computer, the microphone and everything, and I left it at home. And I didn't want to not do it, so I recorded, and the quality was excellent. So you can even do it with your phone. So you could set up a podcast when you go home today if you wanted to. This is the mic that I've got. It's about 130 €100, and what you have, I have like it's called a pop filter, a rubber foam that goes over that, so that prevents the kind of puffing when people are talking, and that works. And you can get another device, which is like a screen. You see the singers using them. I have one, but I don't use it. I don't need it because the cover, and it was like €2 is all it cost me. And so that's the one that I use, and the quality is, I believe, perfect. So, and if you want to spoil yourself and you feel like getting the best of the best, you can spend about 400 and you'll have something like that. This is what I do as well, and it surprises me. A lot of podcasters don't do that. You'll hear them complaining, saying, "Oh, I done a recording, it didn't work." From day one, without even reading about it, I just had a backup plan. This $20, and I plug it into the phone. So not only am I recording on my mic, I plug this in as well, so I have a backup. So just in case it ever doesn't work, I'll always have a backup. I try to be creative when I'm marketing the actual podcast. When I'm doing it on Facebook or the different platforms, I do it on LinkedIn as well. So for example, this guy had got 7 million downloads on YouTube. So I took a picture like that. I had that picture from his Facebook thing. I just asked him, "Are you okay with me using that picture?" So I've yet anybody to object to that. And by someone seeing that, they know that this guy has actually spoken in front of big stages. With this one, I said, "Can you imagine what I said to make him laugh like that?" So out of curiosity, people would listen. I said, "This got so steamy, it felt like we were in a sauna." So that was actually one of the largest downloads that happened. And then sometimes I put a hat. I interviewed Radek as well. I put a pink wig on him. So just instead of just normal pictures. This guy is he's Krav Maga, real serious martial art guy. That's, he's got schools all over Poland. I asked him to choke me because I said they get way more attention, and same thing. It's like 200 downloads in the first day. So things like that, being creative work. Professor, he has a tattoo of a cat on his hand. So I just said, what type of professor would put a cat on his hand, a tattoo? You're just getting curiosity out of people, and for that they come along. I used a signature on my email to promote because you just don't know who's actually going to be listening to your podcast without you having to actually constantly tell people. So I'm sending emails constantly with the different businesses I've got. So you can see they just click on that and they'll get it. And I mean, exactly, Speaking Podcast, it kind of does what it says on the tin. There's so many different platforms, social media and everything out there. I mean, with the Twitter, that was my own personal one, and I just changed it over to start using it for the podcast. I don't believe Twitter works in Poland. I know in the States and the UK, perhaps Finland, not sure, but I get nothing from that. And I stopped promoting on it. So just try to track everything you're doing. Don't be putting it out on 20 things, because it's all time. And if you're not getting any responses or reshares or likes, stick to the ones that you do. And that's just the Instagram. I used the Instagram. That's an older picture now, so it's an updated one. But what I didn't do is, you can pay people to get your followers on Instagram. And what happens is you follow them, they follow you, and it's kind of like a group of gregarious friends, let's call it, so that we're all friends, but nobody knows anybody. So I've refused to do that. They're genuine. So the only people I started following were the people that were guests. So then anyone that comes in can actually find the guests. And I try to promote all the guests on the platform, the meditation one and the speaking one, so that people can get in contact with them. Try to make it a win-win situation. The recording device. So this is one that you could use. It's a Bode Audition, $21 a month. GarageBand for the Mac. And the one that I use is this, Audacity. I'm not really a technical person. I can barely turn on a computer, to be honest with you. So this is perfect. It's simple. It's easy to use. And what I did is I got a guy, paid him to come with me for a day to teach me how to do the editing. And I wrote it down, and now it comes naturally, but it's actually easy, and I share it. So this is all you do. Like, I go back actually. So here is the recording. So I just press record, start talking, and I have my podcast. I can, if I have, say, the music that I mentioned, the beatboxer, I'll just go into a file and insert. So it actually appears below, and then I can highlight that, cut and paste and put it in the front. When I'm doing the editing, I just do a recording from here. I turn the mic down, or I'll plug it out and do the recording so for about 10 seconds. And then you will see it from here. Sorry. What you do, so that's the 10 seconds, you highlight it, you capture the noise profile, then you do the whole, it takes, depending on the length of the recording, anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, but it is actually easy. So if you think you need to do real complex editing, it is very simple, and I have no problem showing you how to do this. I even recorded it once for somebody, so I can share that with you as well, and it's simple. So don't be afraid about the actual editing side of podcasting. These were just things that I did at the start. I don't do that anymore, but it was things that go wrong when you're recording. Someone ringing like in Poland, you have people giving leaflets, and they ring 20 times, they ring everyone, and it just can happen. So put your bell on silent if you've got air conditioning, turn it off, because it'll pick up everything, especially with the mic that I've got. People as well, you say turn off, put your phone, they put it on silent, but if it's on silent, it vibrates. So make sure they don't do that, because you don't want to be in the middle of a conversation with, getting flow, and then you hear the vibrating sound, and it just can affect the interview. So I would suggest telling them turn it off. That's can you hear? Yeah. So I can't hear you. If you can all hear? Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
But you stopped. You don't share anything at the moment, I think.
Yeah. No. I'm back. Yeah. I just want you to see my beautiful face. So if you have any questions, and to be honest, I wasn't able to see the thing, so I'm not sure about my time. So I apologize if I went over. I wasn't able to see the actual the timers.
But in case people want to ask questions, I'm sure they would. You presented a lot of fine content and a lot of things that I think, of course, people want to ask questions. So I'll leave the floor open now, so we can do for about 3 minutes. I know we exceeded the time. So Roy will take questions now if you have. And then Roy, if you want to pursue this matter with Roy afterwards, you're more than welcome to contact Roy. You got his contact information. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to present. And maybe you could address this issue again in another meeting that we have. There's a lot of good, valuable content that you posted on podcasting. So who's going to kick off the question? Hey,
Yes, Roy. One question. What was your first step when you started podcasting?
I went to a workshop, so something similar to what I've just done to you, and I just decided I'll do a check which is the platform I wanted to use. Went away, thought of the name, and secured the domain. So, like, you don't want to be creating everything and then realize the domain doesn't exist. So try to get the name is so important. And I mean, you can use your own country. So it depends, like if you're going to be doing it in Finnish and you want to use the URL for the Finnish.ff, whatever it is, that's okay. But if you're trying to reach the international, .com seems to be the better one. So try to find something that's with the thing, then get the logo and work from there. And another thing, and I didn't mention it actually, is what you can do is perhaps have about 5 interviews, because at one stage I was very consistent, but then I went on a lot of trips and everything and I stopped. I wasn't weekly. So my advice, don't do what I did. Try to be consistent. Try to have it weekly. I've been doing it with the Polish one, and it makes a huge difference. I'm seeing the numbers, even though it came a few months later after the speaking one. I think eventually it will pass out the audience that I have, because I'm more consistent with it. But that's because it's less time. Like 5 minutes is okay to do. And with the editing, what can happen with the editing is sometimes you'll have people that have long pauses. You want to take that out. Or they'll be going, and it's a lot of time going through the whole recording to take it out. But if you want to keep the quality there, I'd advise you to do that.
Thank you very much, Roy. Any other questions for Roy? We have on this side.
Thank you, Roy. I wanted to know, how do you ensure the audio if you interview online?
Yeah, sorry, the computer moved and I just heard it. So if you could repeat the question, please.
How do you ensure the quality of audio if you interview guests online?
I use Zoom, and I've done about 5 or 6 different interviews with Zoom. And what happens is you do a recording. So as soon as the recording is done, because this has been recorded as well, I asked Heikki to actually record it so we can actually, share it with other people. And it sends you the video and the audio, and then I just convert that. I've got a converting tool. It's a free tool that's online, and you just extract it. And for example, this part we would be taking out, and the part where we were just talking, I can extract it and use that from the recording. But I've never had a bad recording. Most of the people that I'd be interviewing would be kind of familiar with using interviews anyway. So, if someone's not going to use the microphone from their laptop, they'd have a connected thing. So I've been lucky. I haven't had a bad quality from an online one.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. Well, one more question. When does the money start coming in?
There's different ways of earning. I'm not using it for money. It was never the objective for me, but some people do. The way it's done is the amount of downloads. So per 1,000 downloads, you can earn anything from $1,000 or $10 to like $40 per 1,000. But what I've heard from other people is, instead of doing it that way, just approach somebody that's in line with what you're doing. So I could go to somebody that's like a speaking academy and say, look, I want $500 per episode or something like that. And you'll end up making more money that way. But what I'm doing is I use it myself. I'm promoting myself constantly. So my book is about to be released, and I can reach out to my audience about that. So that's ways of actually doing it.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I mean, that's been a very informative session. I mean, there's still so many open questions I can see that people have to ask. And I think we will address that again, because it's becoming an issue where I think more and more people are interested in doing that, especially Toastmasters. And we really want to thank you for the technical expertise, the way you presented that. And I think Heikki will tell us a bit more when he does your evaluation. Well done, Roy, and thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to listen to you, and you made this quite interactive. Thank you. Well, that's innovative planning on podcasting. And now we're going to go to another segment of our Toastmasters where we can get innovative as well, but very fast. And guess what this session is called? It's called Impromptu Talking. And we are so fortunate today to have our president of Virtual Toastmasters, Mr. Mikko Cantel, who's going to guide us and lead us and take us through the impromptu session.